What's going on, guys? So it's been a while since I last made a video on the Z4, and the car is due for an oil change today, and I thought this was the best time to actually do the next modification for the Z4. And why I'm doing it during the oil change is because I think that it's going to make less of a mess than usual if you do it when you're doing the oil change. So basically getting all the oil out of that oil filter housing. But that's what we're doing today. We're doing a retrofit. So my Z4 N54 didn't come with the oil cooler, which sucks. No! But I did buy an oil filter housing from another car that did have it. So I'm going to show you guys how to change that out so that you can have an oil cooler. And what I've noticed a lot with the Z4 is that the temperature for the oil gets super high. So this will help with that. And I also got a couple other things that will also help out. Which I'll show you guys. So I'll kind of do a parts rundown of everything that I got for this and then just go step by step. Alright, so here we got the oil change kit from FCP Euro, some liquid moly, and then here's the oil cooler, and I'll put the links in the description of all the parts that I got, but this is the G Plus oil cooler, which you can get either on eBay or Amazon. And then here we have the temperature valve. So this is going to allow the oil cooler to basically kick on earlier so that the oil gets cooled down earlier. And this is recommended for vehicles that aren't daily driven. And by daily driven, I just mean year round. Any areas where there's a winter and the temperatures get really cold, because if you get this and you live somewhere where it gets really cold, it's going to take forever for your car to warm up. So you don't want to do that. Here's just a cap for the housing to cap off this thermostat, and then also comes with a gasket and bolts. Here we have the entire kit for changing the gaskets for the oil filter housing, which you might as well get if you're taking out the oil filter housing, just from FCP Euro. That will help with that. And here is the sport oil filter housing, so you'll see a little bit of a difference here. I'll show you guys my original one, and so you can compare them. I'll also kind of compare them when I take it out. But yeah, all it is just basically this little cover here that comes off. It just has connections for the oil cooler, and that's what you want. And here's the cap for the thermostat. So we're going to be changing that out as well. So I think the first step in this will be just doing the oil change on the Z4. And yeah, it's kind of messy right now, but we got to make do right now. So I'll start draining the oil on that just like a regular oil change, and then once that's going, I'll be able to start taking this apart and kind of getting it ready and prepping it, and then move on to the car. So I have the oil draining out. I'll keep that going for as long as it needs to. And now I'm ready to start on the oil filter housing. So I'm going to work my way from the front and go towards the back, and I'll show you guys everything once it's fully disassembled. But obviously, since it's out of the car, it's kind of hard to use a ratchet. So I would just recommend using an impact. This is the only impact that I have right now. The other M12, the smaller one, broke, so I'm using this. That'll make it easier to take off these bolts while it's not mounted on the car. But yeah, I'll start on that. And as you can see over here in the oil filter housing kit from FCP Euro, you get all new bolts, obviously the gaskets, manifold gaskets, the gaskets that go from the oil cooler lines, and then the oil temperature sensor, I believe. Yeah, oil temp, because there's no oil pressure sensor in these cars, just temperature, which is back here. So yeah, I'm going to start taking it apart, and then once it's fully apart, I'll show you everything that I have. Alright boys, I changed my mind. I'm going to show you guys how to do the front half first, just because it seems better, and I feel like I'll explain it better if I do it one by one rather than all together. And it's not too big of a deal, so I'll do it this way. But right now I have the front half taken apart, and what I did was, just for you guys that are just getting into working on your cars and don't have all the tools, here I'll show you this E12 that you'll need, and Torx, which was T30, and then 23mm box wrench, but I was able to do it with the 25 for the oil temp sensor. Anyways, so as I was taking it apart here, I kind of tried to put everything and lay it out as it came apart. So here I got the temperature cover, set it kind of at an angle of where I took it off. Same with the bolts, and then the bolts for the cover, the entire cover. And then I tried to drop off the original thermostat exactly how it was inside, so that when I put the new one on, I'll put it in correctly. And here's the gasket for this cap right here that I already took off. So here, this is just plain. And then if you look over here, this is where the gasket went. Same with over here, another gasket over here that I already took off, which is down here. And just basically using a pick and getting those gaskets out. So now that we got everything taken apart, I'm going to go through, use degreaser, clean as much as I can, all the grooves everywhere. You also want to make sure that the gaskets down here aren't still in there and it looks like they were taken out, because those are the gaskets that are going to connect to the oil cooler. So I have those over there, so you're not seeing them in this pile over here. But yeah, just cleaning it up, and then I'll go ahead and put this all back together, and then we'll do the rest of the filter housing. So this is just one part of it. Also, I thought I'd mention too, if you guys are looking for ways to clean this and are wondering if you're just starting as well, Harbor Freight has these brushes right here, which is what I'm going to use. I'm going to pick one of those, whichever works best to clean it off with degreaser. So I just thought I'd make a quick note of that. All right, we have everything cleaned up here. I already went ahead and put on the gasket here. So the gasket is in, as you can see. Just press it in all along the side, make sure it's flat. And now it's ready for the sport thermostat. So here's the orientation here. Shorter side on the outside, longer side on the inside. So the spring is facing out. So exactly how I have it here is how it's going to go in. Then I'm going to put the cap on and put on the bolts that it came with. Everything's now put back together here for the thermostat side. The new bolts are in. So all we have left for this cover is to put the gasket onto here. I'm going to kind of blow it up a little bit. I already cleaned it, but make sure there's no dirt or anything like that. And then I have the new gasket right here, so I'll press that in, and then I'm ready to bolt this back on. And the kit from FCP Euro also comes with some new bolts, so we'll be putting these new bolts in. Now that the cover is all back on for the oil cooler, I want to let you guys know that these are 16 foot-pound torque, so make sure you torque all three to that specification. So now that that's done, I'm going to move on to the back here to this oil temperature sensor, which I have right here. I already loosened it, so all I'll have to do is replace it. It has a crush washer, or like a crush washer to make it seal. So make sure that comes off as well. Once I do that, this should all be ready to install. Besides this cap, as you guys will see if you haven't seen any of the other videos, I have a Paradigm oil filter cap, which has been super nice. I hate these caps, and plus they're plastic. So whenever you have a chance, no matter the company, go ahead and replace this. So this will eventually have to come off as well. But yeah, let's get to it. Let's do that sensor and then start taking apart the car over there so that I can get started on the install. Well guys, here comes the fun part.
The things I do for love.
And this is just going to be a pain in the ass, mainly because we have a potential for coolant to spill everywhere, oil to spill everywhere. I'm going to see if I can get all that oil out somehow. But as for coolant, it's definitely going to spill some. I don't think there's any other way to do it. Probably just put in a little cup or something down there to try to catch it all. But as you can see, you got the same E12 bolts, one right there, over here, and then one on the back side. So there's only 3 for the housing. And then where I'm going to start is, I kind of jumping ahead, but where I'm going to start is taking this plastic intake off, then taking off my DCI filters, And then I'm disconnecting the charge pipe from the throttle body. And then also just going ahead and zipping all these bolts out for the intake manifold. There's one hidden right behind the vacuum line there. And then they just go all the way down. Then I'm going to be able to remove the manifold. So a lot of little steps, kind of annoying, but it isn't too hard. Removing that manifold will give you access to the last bolt for the filter housing. But like I said, it's just going to be a little bit of a mess. Also, you can see here disconnecting the oil temp sensor there. But you can see how different this oil filter housing is, obviously, because it doesn't have the oil cooler, and that's what we're trying to get. It is a little tight in here, so feeding those oil cooler lines is going to be fun as well. And for that, we're just going to go ahead and remove the wheel and some of the wheel well here covers. So yeah, that's just a brief overview of what we're doing. I'm going to do all the simple things first, and then once we get to removing the charge pipe and the manifold, I'll give you guys an update here. All right, guys, so all the easy stuff is out. Just the intake scoops, the filters, and the oil filter housing cap. I also disconnected the vacuum line from my tile blow-off valve just to have more room to pull on the manifold. And I'm actually also going to disconnect this sensor over here just to get more room. But that should be it. So for now, I'm going to disconnect the charge pipe and then start removing all these bolts for the manifold so that I can remove the manifold. So I didn't even fully remove the manifold, and I didn't even take off the charge pipe. I just kind of shifted it to the side a little bit, but make sure that the intake gaskets don't fall out. I decided I'm not going to replace the intake gaskets because my valves are actually pretty dirty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get those cleaned. So I'm just going to leave it for now. But it's almost winter here in Wisconsin, so I'm just going to leave it for now. But there you can see the last bolt, the third bolt. So 1, 2, and then the third one back there. So we're ready to just zip them out. Try to not make a mess. Here I have some rags there just in case, because you definitely don't want oil on your belts. So let's see how much of a mess this makes, but it's only 3 bolts, and then we'll swap this coolant hose over to the new one. But even before that, I'm going to want to clean this contact of where the gasket's going to go, the new one, with the new housing. Make sure that's clean, so I'm not going to switch over the hose right away. It's going to be kind of a pain, but we're at the point to disconnect the housing. Of course, we run into an issue. I'm not too happy about this because I just did this Mickey Mouse flange, coolant flange. So as you notice, mine's aluminum, not plastic. And I'm going to have to remove that to get this bolt out or fit a socket onto here. So that really sucks.
Fucks up my plan. This is fucking bullshit. Okay? These fucking assholes, these fucking assholes! The fuck is their problem, man?
As for any of you that haven't replaced the Mickey Mouse flange, this would be a perfect time to do it because you have to remove this old one. So I'm going to have to it's only 2 bolts. It's not that big of a deal, but I'm just going to be making even more of a mess with coolant taking this out. So that's going to be nice. But yeah, all I have to do is remove this, and then I can get the socket onto the third bolt for the oil filter housing. Those 3 bolts are now out, and you can see here where the Mickey Mouse flange was. So that made it way easier to take that out. It did make a little bit of a mess, not too much. And because I soaked up most of the oil in this oil filter housing, it didn't really spill out too much. You can see I have a rag right there. All right, so now that that's done, I can remove this hose and get ready to transfer the new one in. And because it's a new oil filter housing, I already have the gasket in there and everything's clean. So just this end needs to be cleaned up. But yeah, if you guys want to remove this hose first, you can. I just didn't know how much of a mess it will make, and it might be harder to remove right now, but I'll find out. So yeah, we're getting a lot closer to the oil filter housing being done. It's just basically 2 jobs, because after this is done, we'll have to do the oil cooler retrofit. Everything's all bolted on and tight. These and these E-Torx ones, which are torqued down to 16 foot-pounds. And then the oil pressure or oil temperature sensor is also tight. Now all that's left is to connect the manifold back up. So put all the nuts back on and tighten it down, and then connect the connector, which is where to go, right here. But I don't want to connect this right now because it'll get in the way. So yeah, just bolting up the manifold. All right, the manifold is back on. I connected the vacuum hose to the tile blow off valve, so don't forget that or else you won't have boost. And then I'm still missing the DCI cones, but I'm gonna just leave those off right now. Everything is connected, everything is back where it's supposed to be, manifold wise and charge pipe wise. Same with the oil filter housing. The old oil filter cap is still on, which I'll change over to my Paradigm one. But the reason that I'm leaving off here is because I'm feeling extremely under the weather.
Start. I don't feel so good.
You're alright.
I don't.
I'm gonna just do a part 2, and either way, they are kind of 2 different modifications because you do the oil cooler right after the oil filter housing. So 2 separate parts. So I'll just split it into 2 parts. I'll get back to it tomorrow morning. But as you can see, here I'll try to give a better view here. That's it for now, guys, and sorry for ending early, but we'll get to part 2 as soon as I can, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side.